Right. Welcome to the November 6th OpenJ9 community call. Just a reminder to please add your name and affiliation to the agenda so we know who's been attending these calls. And as usual, we'll start by opening things up to any discussion from the community or anything anyone wants to bring up.
This is Erwin. Is there anything urgent to this call? I just wanted to ask about. So at some point, I want to have a discussion with sort of the global teams or GC, VM, share classes regarding. So now that we have multiple SECs, it turns out that the AOT code is not particularly portable. I mean, it is, but we've never had the need before to sort of move share classes from one machine to another. And so we've noticed that, it's possible that you can target one machine, move it to another machine, and then potentially, add more code and stuff like that. And then if you move it back, you can run into problems where you're running code that's not valid. And so I'm starting to look into how we can sort of, tell the compiler to target a particular processor and what features and whatnot. And then Mark brought up an important point, which is what do we do, when someone changes the the heap size or whatever, and then suddenly it's like, okay, now we need to consider maybe we need to force the shift to be a certain value when we're in portable, SEC mode, or the JIT will do things where if it knows that the heap is fixed, the write barrier sequence will be minimized. And so I think we need to have a discussion with the broader team at some point about just a design proposal and what the contract's going to be. And I just wanted to ask, what's a good way of having that? Because I imagine it'll be more than 45 minutes. And so I don't know if doing it in the community call is a good time.
So I think that's a great topic to bring up here. And I agree that it may go longer than 45 minutes. Is it a conversation that has to be completed in one 45-minute or one longer discussion, or is it something that would make more sense to start the discussion, get a bunch of things out on the table, give people a chance to think about it and come back to it again?
I think the latter makes sense, at least right now, since there's still, I'm still learning more and more things. Like, for example, I was talking to Philip, and then he mentioned, oh, yeah, if the heaps are the same, like XMX and XMS, then the write barrier will be different. And I was like, oh, didn't even know that. So I guess you're right. It does make sense to think about all the different things that we might need. One of the ideas I was even sort of puttering around with would be, if it might even be worth sort of storing the entire option string in the SEC, and that way we can compare, if anything changed in the entire VM. Because now that we have this portable world, we kind of have to start thinking like a static compiler runtime thing. It's a problem we've never had before, but we are starting to have it now with images and layers and stuff. But I think your idea of having it in chunks makes sense, and then when we have the entire story, we could have sort of a one-off meeting maybe in terms of what to do.
I think that sounds good. So next week we have Sue set to give a lightning talk, but it might be good to schedule sort of a first discussion on this following that. Is that do you think you would be ready to sort of jumpstart the discussion on this for the 13th?
Yeah, I can make a list of things that I know of now, and then if we can get some GC guys and other SEC guys and stuff, maybe they'll have other inputs and other ideas as to. Because the thing is, for example, with something like the shift, like forcing the shift, it's something that has to be done before the JIT's loaded, right? Because the GC has to agree on it and everything. So it'd be good if we had multiple people from different components in that talk, and then we can all have that discussion. But I can make a list of the things that I have thought of and other people have brought up, and then we can sort of look into it. I'll put it in an issue.
Yeah, that would be great. And if you can add a link to that issue from the agenda here, that would be good.
Okay.
To make it easy for people.
All right, I'll do that when I write it up.
I thought I had seen an issue started for this already.
I did, but that was sort of it was more local to the compiler because I was thinking, oh, well, what we need is to just sort of have a way of telling the compiler what what CPU features to target, and that seemed compiler local. But then if we're now suddenly realizing that hey, people can change the heap sizes, and maybe we have to fix the the uh, the compressed ref shift and other things, it suddenly becomes something that it's only it's only AOT code that's affected, but it has to be configured at the runtime level. It's before the JIT's even loaded, because the entire runtime has to agree on it. And suddenly that's when I realized, okay, we need to have a bigger discussion. It's more than just a JIT now.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I was going to create a top level issue and link the existing one to it, because that's just one component of it. But Mark was saying we should think about exactly what portability means. It's more than what I thought it was.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. So if you'll be ready to kick that discussion off next week, I will help encourage developers from all the different components to be here for that meeting.
Okay, thank you. I'll write up an issue today.
Thanks, Erwin. So next week we should have a lightning talk from Sue, and then follow that up with this discussion. In a few weeks, we have some people who've been at conferences around different topics that it would be good to get them to come and present on. So I know we've had people at DevOps Belgium.
Who did we have at DevOps Belgium?
Toby's there. Toby Agila, one of the VM contributors. I believe he's
Okay.
on Valhalla.
Nice.
And I know Shelley is attending another conference this week, and Lan is as well. So there are a couple of test-related conferences that would be good to get updates on as well. So I don't know if there's other ones that I'm not aware of that people have attended recently. But if there are, feel free to add them to this list and get a quick update from people on how the message on OpenJ9 has been getting out there. All right. Take a quick look at the recent user-raised issues. There was an issue opened yesterday, I believe, on performance of thread local access. And so I know that's gotten a bit of attention for people, so that's good. There was also a seg fault noted in the walk stack for exception throw, which I don't believe we've responded to yet, so we should get on getting a response there.
Gak just did. He just asked for the core.
Oh, okay, excellent. The Nashorn has had a little bit of updates and a little bit of discussion. But again, it's one we need to track down why we're finding JDK 11 is slower than JDK 8. The next one is a verify error using a particular transformer, and we're just having some trouble getting a core file with the class file in it.
Is it possible systhrow isn't the right trigger to use? Should we be using throw instead of systhrow?
I don't think so. Verify errors are generally thrown directly from directly by the VM. I'll take a look through the code as well, just to confirm that on this particular error he's reporting.
Okay.
Just a question about that. Are you guys trying to add an Xdump on a throw? Is that what you guys are doing?
Yes.
Because AOT is enabled, if there is a problem in AOT code and you put Xdump, the code won't be loaded, and then we may not throw. Just throwing that out there. I've had that problem before.
Okay.
It's just something that we can stick. It may not be JITted code that's a problem, and AOT code is a problem. It's just that you may want to try the test with AOT disabled or something, and then see if it still happens. Just because then at least that way you eliminated one problem.
He's getting the verify error. He's able to recreate that with the xdump option. He's just not finding the core file.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right. Then it's not AOT. I guess I misheard.
I suppose the core file could be somewhere unexpected, or we're not using the right trigger to generate it.
Yeah. And I think the latest message is actually different. Pull this up. I believe it started with an invoke special on an invalid target, but the latest message he showed reports a different problem. Class name is invalid. So,
but is that still a verifier? It's got a message code, CFRE.
that one might be a class format error. I'd have to dig through the code to confirm what we throw in that particular case.
Okay, so we could expand our xdump option to include other things.
Yes. This is again, yeah, this one again is the class name is invalid. So there's something odd going on here. All right. The next one was raised from a discussion on Slack around GC during idle cycle. I believe Alex has been pulled into that discussion as well. So the next one is a usability difference between our string buffer and OpenJDK's, which only affects JDK 8. As in newer releases, we're using the OpenJDK versions. It's sort of a pathological case where we will continue to attempt to grow the buffer, whereas OpenJDK will give up and throw it out of memory. So possibly some tuning required there. And then the other one is an issue with circular chained exceptions, which I believe there's a patch for already. So, all right, and that brings us back to where we were last week. Is there anything anybody wants to call out on any of these?
Maybe we should target the verify error to the next milestone just so we don't lose it.
Good call. All right. Andrew, have you had a chance to update the images here for the download stats?
Yes, I have. And it's quite interesting, actually. I'm not quite sure where this huge number of OpenJ9 downloads have come from, but I'm wondering if it's because Hotspot were late in doing the quarterly update.
Oh, okay.
It's quite a significant jump in OpenJ9 downloads there. 500,000, I think it is, if I look at the figures. Yes, roughly 500,000. So I'm not sure where they've come from, to be honest.
Well, that's great. Hopefully that trend continues.
Yes. Either that or someone's running a loop somewhere that's downloading it over and over again. I was going to look at the dashboard to try and identify which. In fact, no, it's across all of them. So it's across all versions.
Yeah, it would be good if we had some way of finding out more about what's driving those downloads, because that's great.
It's tricky because these are basically stats from, well, it depends on which repo they come from, but GitHub download stats. And naturally, they're not going to reveal who's really downloading them.
Yeah. It's a great problem to have.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments on the download stats before we move on? All right.
So just one last. So I'm just looking at if you go to the doc dashboard, you can see a bit more by version detail. And I'm just looking at JDK 11.05 plus 10. And that's 320,000 downloads. So it does seem that there's been a big uptake from someone on our latest quarterly update.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dashboard does not seem to want to load for me right now. There we go. So on the OpenJDK.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry. That was the hotspot one. There's so many here. I can look at the wrong one so easily. Anyway, if you look at that dashboard, it is useful to dig a bit deeper if you need to.
Okay. All right. Moving on to our roadmap. 0.17. Have we released the updated builds with Mac notarization and OpenSSL?
So yes, they were done. We got approval on Tuesday, so they were done yesterday. That's all published. Sue was doing the doc update today. One slight hiccup: the JDK 8 Windows 64-bit installer was missing. I'm currently rebuilding that now, but that was a minor omission.
Sorry, the Win64 installer was missing?
The Win64-bit installer. The JDK was there, but the installer was missing on JDK 8. So that's currently rebuilding.
Okay.
Yeah, on the Mac notarization, so we're currently at the work that George Adams did to put us in the best we can do at the moment situation. But it's going to have to be revisited once Apple upgrade their restrictions in January, February timeframe. So I need to probably ping George on what the plan is there.
So what will need to change at that point?
Well, that's a good question because it's not obvious at the moment, and it might depend a bit on what Apple do. So it's like chicken and egg. Because at the moment they've relaxed because a lot of developers are having trouble to try and notarize their binaries. They've relaxed the restrictions, which is why we're sort of okay where we are at the moment. So we're basically signing the packages that we create, but not the binaries inside them.
Andrew, you may want to check with George because he apparently did the same for Node, and it is a full implementation.
Oh, okay. I'll check with George. It doesn't sound like what he told us last time.
Yeah, that's why I said they need to check.
It might be different because we have Node don't have JMods,
All right.
and it's the
okay.
JMods where the problem are. So it's
So
probably
the
more
node,
of
the
a,
node team who's sitting behind me is saying that George has done the same for node as he has for adopt. There is nothing extra that he has done there.
Okay, and that's confirmed with George.
yes, but what they've done for Node, that if you've just signed the packages, because Node probably doesn't have probably the binary issue we have with JMods, I suspect. But I'll check with George, see what. So George has done this for Node. How's he done that?
I think he just signed the package. Is that right? He just signed the package, hasn't he? On node. Yeah.
He's given a.
So it's not tested and it's not in production or anything yet.
Right. So that's not full notarization. Just signing the
think that's probably
package
true,
is
yeah.
not. So yeah, that is what I thought was happening. So I think we're in agreement. So come January, that needs to be improved. Am I still online?
Yeah.
Well, I'll talk to George anyway, because I need to know what he plans to do there. What we need to do there.
Okay. All right. Then we've already talked about the 17.1 release. All right, the 018 release, just a reminder to everyone that the code split is coming up in December 16. So please take a look at that milestone and make sure that the issues on there are being burned down and that anything that should be addressed has been addressed. Pete, I know you've been looking at AIX. How is the XLC 16 support coming?
So we have AX enabled in our builds again. We're able to run all the tests with the DDR support, or the DDR testing excluded. Keith is working on the DDR support. He's got something working that's kind of hacky, and he's working on a solution that he can deliver.
So that is with XLC 16, because I know there was talk about moving it back to 13 at one point.
So in order to get DDR working, we need a new version of the dump utility on AIX. So we need to wait, even once we've got all the code changes delivered, we need to wait until AIX delivers the new dump utility, and then we upgrade the machines to have it. It's supposed to happen by the end of the year.
Okay.
There is still, I think, a problem with the way we're linking. There's a new requirement for when we're using XLC 16, you need lib C++ on your machine. And I think we need to take a good look at how we're linking in the libraries, because I'm not sure it's correct. There's an issue open for that already.
This is the discussion on whether we need to statically link lib C++.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's how the issue started, but there's also some comments in there about libraries that we're linking to and the paths that are included. And I think we need to maybe fix the paths somehow.
Okay.
It looked to me like it was linking to an OMR sig that it found on the machine from another VM. And it's got some relative paths to lib C++. So if we're not going to statically link it, I think we need to do a better job of dynamically linking it.
Yes. Okay. And just a reminder that Java 14 is coming. People will be starting to look at some of the gems that need to go into that as well. Do we have any other update from Adopt beyond what we've discussed around notarization and releases?
Just one point, the problem on the web page to do with the homepage download, where it was pointing to the wrong one, that has been fixed by my team.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah. So it now points to the point 1 correctly.
The time zone updater.
Yeah, where I'm hopefully tomorrow going through with David how to create a build chain for that. So there's still some work to do there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to do a demo, playback at some point. We'll do that on here, I guess, would be a good idea.
Yeah, it would be great. The discussion around the contributor teams bug, I haven't seen any updates to that. I'm not sure how relevant it still is, given that we can assign issues to anyone who comments. I may take this off the agenda. Actually, I will take this off the agenda, as there's no real, nothing we're tracking there at the moment anymore. All right. I don't see Adam or Joe on for an update on in terms of machines. I know there has been some discussion on how to get better access to the Windows machines on SoftLayer.
So in terms of the SoftLayer machines, I now have access to that, and we're trying to sort out access for Joe as well, but there was a problem with his account. So at the moment, at least in the interim, until Joe gets his access sorted, if you need anything done, give me a shout.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Does that mean you can do a hard reset on one of the OpenJ9 machines, Stuart?
Yes, you should do.
The one that is number 5 needs a hard reset. Hard
okay,
reboot.
I'll have a look. Yep.
Thank you.
Skip over this. I don't see Sue on the call, so I don't think there'll be an update on the website. Is there any other discussion that we should have at this point? All right, then based on that silence, I will say thank you to everyone, and we'll run the next call on November the 13th.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.